today is a test, a test for myself to see if I could follow my own instructions. This is really ridiculous, but we're going to try anyway. Let's check it out. So if we go over to the series Climate Change Quantified, I want to see, can I follow my own instructions and reproduce the work that I've done in the past so many times? And to get there, I have to come down to part 2, the source of the climate data. So if we do that, I got to go to this website. And let's see what happens. Let's go open up. So the FTP site is not reacting. That's not good. That's where this all begins, is pulling this data from that FTP site. Okay. All right. Let's shut the recording. I'll start over. So in the first part of this, I was trying to follow the steps I had previously written on how to get this data. And I clicked on this link to go to this website. Of course, that website doesn't exist anymore. So now I've updated this link, which takes you to this. It's still the same data. It's GHCN Daily Archive from today, which is July 28th, 2021. This tar.gz file is, you can see, 6.9 gigabytes. So I downloaded that, came in right here, and then decided to try to get the tar tool. If we go back to the instruction set, let's see here. Go back to the instruction set. It says go get the tar tool here, and then follow these instructions. Well, I tried to do that, but the tar tool has moved in the open source arena. That's what happens. And I got the newest one, started looking at it. It didn't have an exe in it. I don't know. They've changed it, but luckily, all I had to do was click the 7-zip, which is now in process of taking the tar file, 6.9 gigabytes, and writing out the data. You can see it's a 35-minute process takes from tar.gz, putting it over to tar. And then from there, we should be able to unzip it directly into the individual data files. But you can see this is a pretty big amount of data. It's 7,000 megabytes or 7 gigabytes, taking 35 minutes. So I'm going to let this continue. And once we get to the tar file, I'll start up again and see what we have to do next. All right. So now that we've used 7-zip to open up the tar file, we have 118,000, ridiculous number here, 118,455 daily temperature files from monitoring stations all around the world. So I'm going to extract them into a directory. No clue how long that's going to take. Looks like about on the order of 15 minutes. So this is part 3 of processing weather data. Okay, so while the files are downloading from 7-zip, I decided to open one up and take a look at it. And much to my surprise, this whole process has changed. We used to have to extract this data. I used to have to extract this data using Alteryx, and oh boy, let's go back and take a look at how we used to have to do it. So this data used to be stored in a .daily file. It's a flat file that had to be parsed using a number of the text files to look things up to find out where they're located. So they used to have the monitoring stations and their coordinates, and so I had to parse those text files in Excel to get the country names, all of that stuff. Then we had to assemble the complete monitoring station file. And then if we go over to part 3 here, take a look at this, we had to continue reading the monitoring station data, and we had to extract Tmax, Tmin, snow depth. We had to read all of the flags, which tell you about the data quality of the data. And then I had to write a workflow that used these various flat file settings to parse all the fields. You can see how much work this was. We move over now to part 4. This is the third article that describes how you get this data out. I had to write this workflow to essentially parse the data to be able to get it out, to be able to work with it. So as a batch macro, here's the driver file, and all of these steps documented everything that I had to do to get this data to be able to work with it. Needless to say, this was very challenging. This was why I wrote the 5-part article, and it required a lot of work, as you can see. So included in here are things like performing data unit conversions because of the units the data used to be stored in. They were, you can see here, precip, I had to divide by 254 because it must have been stored in millimeters, things like that. And then I did other things, data enrichment using assigning a century based on the date. I had to assemble the dates. I had to assemble decades, keep dates that have only values, all kinds of things. So little did I realize that as I'm downloading and outputting these, and I open the file up, now suddenly, just for the first time since I did this in 2013, here it is 8 years later. This is the data from one monitoring station. Monitoring station name, the date starting in 1949, latitude, longitude, the name of the station, and then we're going to have information on precip, snow, snow depth, Tmax, Tmin, and their data qualifiers. So all of that work that I had to do in Alteryx has been removed, and the data is coming out straight out into a CSV file. Of course, if I take one of these CSV files and open it in Excel, so let's go ahead and open this with Excel and take a look at it. There we go. Looks like it's a lot easier to work with the data now. So this particular monitoring station goes from 1949. Oh, it's just a partial station of data from 1949. But it is an example of what we get. But we can also see that we've got some issues like in here where we have commas and data qualifiers. So Tmax qualifiers, all these qualifiers are going to have to be parsed to recognize what they are because there's multiple qualifiers that could be in here. And so this is going to require some additional research and unit conversions for the precip, unit conversions for temperatures. Some of the things that I used to have to do is going to require a new workflow, basically. So I guess that's good news and bad news. Let's open up file that has a little bit more data in it, just to take a look. Go by size here. So let's open up this guy. Yet the Yap Island Weather Station, wherever that is. And this has data going from 1941 all the way down to recently. So it's 725. So this is only data, that's good news. This data is only 4 days old, which is what I was hoping for. But I am going to have to write a workflow to read these CSVs, do the unit conversions, find out which of the attributes I want to keep, which ones I want to eliminate, because I like to eliminate data quality errors straight off the bat. I don't want to include those. Makes it easier for me to do the work. Well, good news and bad news. So there you go. That's another part. It's going to require another article to give us an updated procedure for how all of this is done.